Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy Ottenhoff, and I'm one of the Bourne coordinators. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar 2 in a series of reporting webinars using the data download reports in the Bourne Information System, or BIS. A question and answer period will occur at the end of the presentation. Please type your questions into the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, and feel free to enter a question at any time during the presentation. As you've just heard, the webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to the Bourne, Ontario website under Report Training. Our presenters for today are my fellow Bourne coordinators, Laurel Salenzi and Vivian Holmberg, and I'm going to turn it over to them now.
Thanks, Kathy. So this is Laurel, and oops, went the wrong way. So as Kathy said, this is the second of 3 reporting webinars. And today we're going to focus on the data download reports, which are a bit more complex to navigate than the standardized reports that we presented in April. So this is today's webinar, and in the fall we're going to do a 3rd reporting webinar on the Baby Friendly Initiative report and the Robson report. And plus, if there's webinars that you would like us to host, please send to your coordinators, because we're happy to provide you with all the information you need. As Kathy said, this webinar and all our webinars are posted on the Bourne, Ontario website under Report Training. So if your colleagues are not able to watch it today live, they can do it later. So today we're going to go through how to access the data download reports, review some of the components of the data download reports that are quite different than the standardized report. We're going to demonstrate the functionality. So for the mere reason that this slide deck is posted as well without the audio, without the demonstration part of it, we had to put in some slides that show the static functionality. So we're going to go through those, but Vivi's going to take us through a live demonstration of how to run these reports. And so you'll learn how to manipulate the data in order to look at your own queries, and you can analyze them and save them. So just as a warning, these reports, unlike the standardized reports, are absolutely chock-a-block full of personal health information. So you have to be incredibly careful. Only download or share the data to a secure counter space on your network drive, and only if you're permitted by your organization's privacy and security policies. So if you're not sure, you can check with your privacy officer if you have a secure encrypted place. Never put these reports on portable storage devices unless, again, permitted by your organization. But once you get personal health information on a data stick and you lose the data stick, if it's not encrypted, etc., then you can definitely be at risk of sharing personal health information. Please don't print these with identifiers in. As you will see, there's a lot of personal health information and personal identifiers in the data download report. So you have to be very careful about getting that out before you even save it. And again, as always, don't ever use the Biz data for anything other than its intended purpose, so for your specific queries. So what is a data download? So the data downloads are really exported data that for a selected time frame that provides data, all the data in either an encounter for multiple patients or for the patient's entire experience. So these are encounter lists if you just want to query something that happened, for instance, in the labor encounter. Or the patient experience list would give you every data element in labor, birth, and postpartum for a mom that has been entered into the Bourne Information System, so that you can do cross-encounter queries. So the encounter list, as I said, they're a spreadsheet view of every data element for a particular encounter. So if you just want to look at data that's in the labor or just in the birth or just in the postpartum, say you just want to look at something about postpartum discharge information, you will only need to query the postpartum encounter list. And why would you use these? Because some of the information we only provide so many standardized reports, but every hospital, every organization wants some different kind of query. So if they're not available in the standardized reports, you use this entire data download to create your own query, apply filters, and get your data out. So there are multiple encounter list reports. There's 4 maternal ones, like I said. If your hospital uses the antenatal general, you'll find data in the antenatal general encounter. That's got demographics, the maternal health conditions, and maternal pregnancy history. The labor, which is what we're going to look at today, well, we're not actually. We changed our minds. We're going to show you the experience report. But if you just wanted to query labor data elements, it also includes the antenatal general as well as admission and transfer data, the labor details, and what maternal outcome is related to transfer, whether she was transferred out or not. The birth, same, it contains all the birth encounter data, and the postpartum contains all the postpartum data. So you can see that if you just wanted something about postpartum, you could go to the encounter list. But if you needed to create a query, which we're going to show you today, across those encounters, then you would have to use the maternal patient experience report. So these are the encounter lists available for the child at the infant level. There's a birth and postpartum. If you were looking for something about screening, your newborn screening or hearing screening, you would maybe just use the postpartum. But if you wanted something related to the birth details and the screening, you'd have to use the infant experience report. For the NICU, there's 1 encounter list, and it includes all the data elements that are entered in the NICU encounter. So we're going to take you through a query. For instance, this site wanted to know what the epidural rate is by type of labor and parity in their hospital. So the reason you can't see this in the profile of birth report, there is a standardized profile report that provides us with the rate of pain management in women who had a vaginal birth. But that's all you get. It's a standard report, and you can't dive deeper by parity or by type of labor. You just know what the pain management strategies are in your hospital for women who had a vaginal birth. Similarly, in the key indicator report, there is a standardized report that's about pain management during labor. And it's a standard report, but it, again, does not sort. You can't drill any deeper to see what kinds of women had what kind of pain management. So when you need to expand your query, you use these encounter or experience lists. So this is an example just to illustrate the profile report. So these are the reports we did the last webinar on, was profile and indicator reports, our standard reports. So like I said, the rate of pain management among women who had a vaginal birth by hospital birth. So it does not split it up. It tells us the type of pain management we're using in our hospital, but not really related to a specific cohort of women. Similarly, the key indicator report tells us what kind of pain management we're using in our hospital, but it doesn't tell us about multips, primips, or the type of labor they had. So as with these are clinical reports, the data download reports. So as with all reports, you go into the reporting tab, select clinical reports, and what we've provided for you here is a list of all the download reports, all the encounter, and the 2 experience lists, 1 for moms and 1 for babies. This is going to be at the bottom of your other list of standardized reports, your BFI, your key indicator profile, but we didn't have big enough space, so we're just showing you the data download reports. As always, the local administrators will assign access to the reports as approved by whoever in your hospital approves access. So some places it's the director who says, yes, so-and-so can have access to clinical reports. If you work in decision support, you may require that access, and so you get permission, and then the local administrator at your hospital will assign that. So this is what it looks like when you open the labor encounter. And so this is, like I said, a static. So what you would do is if I want to do a query in my labor encounter, I put in my date range, and the list pops up like this. And this is not, you're not able to manipulate it, you're not able to do anything. So you need to export it to Excel in order to do any kind of analysis. So now we've put it into, if I click on to get it to Excel, it appears like this. And what we want to do, this is our headers, and these are essentially all our data elements. So you want to highlight that row because we don't want everything. We just want to create our query about epidural use in spontaneous or induced labor by multips and primates. So I'm going to click on this header, click on data, and click on filter. And you can see these arrows provide the ability to filter. And like I said, Vivi's going to take you through this live. So I'm not actually going to stay too much on this, but we will be filtering by type of labor, the pain management, and the parity, because that's part of our query. So it essentially looks like this. We find, and we'll show you how to find each because there's hundreds. This can be quite daunting when you first open up a big Excel spreadsheet like this. So we're going to look for type of labor. That's one of our columns we're going to filter. And then we are going to pain management, which is behind here. And what we want to show you here is that everything that's been selected for that time frame for every woman will show up in the list. When you open it, it's all selected. So you want to just look at epidural, so you'll deselect all by clicking this button, and then select everything that has epidural in it. So you click down this drop-down arrow, these drop-down arrows, to open up these lists. And so this is an example of we've selected our columns. We've highlighted them because we want parity, type of labor, and interpartum pain management. And this is where we would filter. So we'd filter parity by 0 or 1 and greater. We would filter the type of labor by what we want, induced or spontaneous, and then we would filter the pain management by epidural, anytime an epidural is used. So the patient experience reports are a broader report, and that's actually what we're going to show you today. It's a spreadsheet view of all the encounters for mom. So every encounter she's had, if she had a labor and birth and postpartum, if she just had a birth and postpartum and no labor, and also for the child, birth and postpartum. The experience report for the child does not include the NICU because there's an NICU encounter list on its own. Why would you use these? Again, I already told you if your query spans over more than one encounter. So we're going to create our query about epidural use in primates, multips by type of labor. We're also going to expand our query to say what kind of postpartum complications did they have. We want to see that. So this is our query in the experience report. We want to see epidural use by type of labor and parity and what kind of postpartum complications they have. So Vivi's actually going to take us through this. Like I said, this slide is for people who are viewing the slides at a later date. So she's going to show you how to filter and by both types, multips and primates. And I think I can skip this part because we'll go right into Vivian to provide us with the demonstration of actually how to do it. Are there any questions so far before we start the demo? Okay, great. Vivi, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Laurel. Hi, my name's Vivian Holbrook. Some of you may know me, others may not. I have worked primarily with midwifery practice groups, but I'm coming back into the hospital world a little bit. So I'm pleased to talk to everybody today. Laurel already described a little bit about how to generate the patient experience report in the Born system and then why it's important. Give me 1 second while I'm doing this to just shift over my participant view. Once you've rendered the report in the Biz and you export to Excel, you're going to have a document on your screen that looks a little bit like what I have showing for you. Just to make things a little bit easier for you, I recognize that the font size is small on this. On the left navigation tree, under Moderator Tools, there's a box with an arrow within it pointing outward. If you click on that, you should go to full screen.
I think we've already put everyone on full screen, Vivi.
Okay, great. That's good. Okay, so you may or may not see the exact details of the data that's in here. Know that this is test data only. This doesn't reflect any data from a specific hospital. When you export to Excel, there will be a menu bar up here that we're going to be leveraging. I'll speak to the header, which is our row 1 here. And I'm going to undo something that I had done previously. To select a full row, to apply filters so that we can dig a little bit deeper into the data that's presented here for you, come to the far left, click on the one. What it does is it highlights in blue that whole row. Come over to Sort Filter, scroll down to Filter, click it once, and you'll find these little white boxes are displayed. I'm going to show you just a slightly different way of doing that. I'm going to unfilter by just deselecting that. Some people are trained or learn to go to the Data tab up at the top, click on Filter, does the same sort of a thing. I just didn't want to confuse people because you can get to the same functionality using 2 different methods. Once you've got this drop-down list available for you, for all of the records that are in this particular spreadsheet, what it does is it gives you the options per column when you click on it. So I'm just going to go to Parity. I've highlighted it in yellow so that it's easier for you to see. But if I click on Parity, what shows up is a box that lists all of the potential options that are in all, that's displayed in all of the data for this particular spreadsheet. You can unselect all this way. You can put them all back on. You can unselect one or put it back on. There's other functionality that you can do up at the top that's a little bit fancier, but we're gonna stick to this more simple stuff. So we're running a query, and Kathy, please jump in, or Laurel, jump in to help direct me if I miss a particular piece of it. But the first part that we were going to do was select primate, women who are primates. So I'm going to click everything and then deselect. I'm doing it backwards here. Unclick everything, click on 0, and we've got our group of primates here. Parity is 0 in this particular column. There's a lot of data in the patient experience report. Sometimes it can feel a bit overwhelming, but we can apply some Excel tools that help make looking at the data a little bit more manageable. You have the opportunity in Excel to click on a whole row, scroll over, right-click on your mouse, come down to hide. What that does is it actually hides the data from those 4 columns. It compresses it, it makes it non-visible for you, and you can see other stuff a little bit more clearly. You can unhide, select the left side row and the right side row, click on your mouse, come down to unhide, and it puts everything back in. I'm going to just come and hide that to make it a little bit simpler for everybody. You'll notice, if you can see on the screen in front of you, I've hidden a whole bunch of data between column P and column AU just to make this a little bit simpler. The thing with hiding the data, and the advantage to hiding the data as opposed to deleting those columns, is that you can unhide it. If you feel that you're, when you start going down the path of doing some analysis, you go, oh, I really wanted to include that particular piece that I hid. Well, you can unhide it and find that data available. If you really don't need it, feel free to delete it, but try the hiding first, and it might work well for you. So, Parity we've chosen. We've got our primate clients, they're primate patients. The next thing that we wanted to look at was type of labor for those particular women. And if I click on the drop-down list here for...
Yep. I just interrupt and remind them about the denominator at the bottom from your parent.
Thank you. Thank you. This is out of habit, so I apologize for that. On the screen, you should see at the very bottom is once you apply a filter, it gives you your denominator. So it says to me that 68 of 157 records are my primate patients. You'll have to keep track of those denominators. One thing Excel doesn't do perfectly when you're using it with multiple filters, it doesn't track it for you. It ultimately displays my 157 records, which was my original denominator, both primate and multip. And so when you apply filters, keep track on a piece of paper beside you the fact that 68 of these women were primate. When I do the second filter under type of labor, I'm going to deselect all, reapply one, which is spontaneous labor. I don't know that whether you can see this or not, but the number here now is 33 of 157, which is our original denominator.
It's 33 of 68.
33 of 68 primates had spontaneous labor. Just to take it one step further, we wanted to find out what the what the pain management use was of those women, and we'll look specifically at epidurals. When I click on the interpartum pain management column, the drop-down list beside it, I can see some of the data that's selected. This particular data element is what we call in Born a multi-select data element, so you can select one item, or you can select two or three, or as many as the pick list selections are available for you. And so when it shows up in this drop-down list, and you need to see the whole thing, you can grab the bottom corner of the white box that shows up, and you can drag it over, or drag it down, or make it smaller or bigger, do whatever you want to so that you can see everything that's selected in there. I'm going to deselect everything, and I want to choose all those instances where the word epidural is included, not including the other items. So I'm going to click on this one. On this one, I see epidural here, so I'm going to choose it there. Epidural is hiding within this group of stuff. Click on OK. And what we've got now is 3 filters applied. There are 25 women who had spontaneous labor, who were primates, who had epidural use as part of their interpartum pain management. So that is something that you would want to write down and keep track of. If you want to choose to change that, you can always change your pick list and reselect as you need to. The recommendation, though, is only do that with the last item that you selected, or you can get yourself into a little bit of a confusing circle. So stick with the last one. So one of the things that we talked about, why is this particular patient experience report of value in applying these filters and in doing some of the more intricate analysis? The fact that it crosses encounters, that it speaks to the whole maternal patient experience at the hospital makes this different than the encounter list report. So postpartum complications is a data element that sits on the postpartum encounter. Interpartum pain management, type of labor, and parity sit on the labor encounter. What we're doing is allowing for some analysis that crosses those encounters. And so if I select postpartum complications, for example, we can see that there are 3 options for postpartum complications. I'm just going to quickly select perinatal hematoma. There's only one patient who had that. But I want to change that. I'm going to go back and now take a look more specifically. Again, I'm just going to do my unknowns. Remember in Born that when you choose unknown, it becomes missing data and it becomes unreliable for further analysis. We don't know right now why those women had unknown selected for a postpartum complication. We recommend that sites do their best to lessen the amounts, the times that unknown is selected really for any data element. You can't slot that into a pick list value or understand what the data for this particular data element really refers to when unknown is selected. We call it missing or unknown. We use those terms interchangeably. So I just want to do a plug here for getting or lessening the amount of unknown data that is available. So let's say you get to this point and you're not sure where you want to go, or you want to start looking at multips, or you feel you've gone down a path that you're not sure you should go down. The easiest way to sort of start again is just to remove all your filters and start with the same data set that we started with. We know, Laurel, just as a reminder, 3 of the women who had an epidural and spontaneous labor and were primates had unknown listed as a postpartum complication.
Yeah, so I recorded that 1 out of the 25, so we ended up with 68 primates, 33 had spontaneous labor, 25 of those, of the 33, had epidurals, and 1 of the 25 had complications. But now we want to filter for multips, right, Vivi?
We are going to do it again. I'm going to just get rid of all the filters and start again. So come up to sort, I selected the header row. Come up to sort and filter, deselect filter, and it brings back everything so that I can start again and really apply everything from the beginning. So I'm going to select the header row. You kind of got to keep track of this, but it's great because you can follow your nose a little bit. Find something, come back to it, find it again and keep going, digging deeper. It's very exciting. It's a lot of fun. None of this is scary. If you're hiding columns and not deleting columns, you'll find everything back again. It's exciting and fun stuff for those of us that like doing this. Parity. I'm going to now do my multip. So I'm just going to remove the 0, and everything that's left is going to be my multip patients. Of those multips, 89 of them are, of those all patients, 89 of them are multips, excuse me. I'm going to look at those who have spontaneous labor. So I come to type of labor, and I choose only spontaneous labor, interpartum pain management. I don't really need to make it any bigger, but I'll remind you how to do the making it bigger so you can see everything. Deselect, add everything that's got the word epidural in it. I'm not choosing a spinal epidural combination on purpose. Click select. So we're at 19. Oh, I forgot, Laurel, to track how many had spontaneous labor.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
That's okay. So I'm going to come back here.
Oh, man, you've got to write these down.
Exactly. So I'm going to come back here, put them back in. 43 of 157 women had spontaneous labor. So you can move forward. You can forget something. You can move back. That's totally fine. It's all good.
So 43 out of our 89 multips had spontaneous labor, right?
Exactly. So I'm going to come back here, quickly select our epidurals again. 19 of those women had an epidural. We can tell pretty easily because the list is short here. But of the unknowns, because I'll highlight that, 4 of them had unknown data under postpartum complication, and the balance had no complications specified. So you can make a mistake, come back. If you need to start again, undo all of your filters. You can follow your nose. I suggest hiding the columns that you don't really need to look at. You can find those, open up those columns again if you need to. Highlight in yellow or in some column the ones that you're really looking at. It makes finding this stuff a little bit easier. And have fun with it. It's a lot of fun looking and digging deep into your data. And that's it, Laurel.
That's great. So to answer our query, we have to do the math. So for our primates, 25 out of 33 primates had an epidural with spontaneous labor, and that's 75%. And our multips, 19 out of 43 patients had spontaneous labor and an epidural, which is 44%. So that may be significant data for your institution to find out who's getting epidurals. And then looking at the postpartum complications, which we found only 1 in the primates and none in the multips. So that's how you use the data download reports. Very briefly, this takes a while to play. It can be quite daunting, and we're happy to help you. So the key points is every time you go into a data download is export it to Excel. You can't do a thing until you export. As Vivi demonstrated, she said she highlighted them for you to see, but we really recommend you either highlight the column that you're working on so that you never lose track of it, or you document whether it's column CC or AV, but the best way is to just highlight it so you'll never lose the columns you need for your query. Always document your numerator and denominator. They change as you filter down, as you saw. And you need to do the math yourself to get it into percentages, i.e. 75% of our primates with spontaneous labor had epidurals. So we just had to take the numerator, divide by the denominator, and times 100. Always, always, always ask us for help. Do not struggle through these the first time. We can hop on webinar and help you through it. And if you've got a query that you can't manage, first of all, let us know, and then we may recommend that you make a data request to the Born team, the science team, at science@bornontario.ca. Sorry, I was trying to... So another resource for you about reports is the Biz Report Guide for Hospitals Users that we released last week. It's available to you. We sent it out, I think, to all our users, and it's also available on the website under the Born Information System Report Training. And again, when you're going through it and you have questions, don't struggle through, just contact your Born coordinator. The training video from today will be under training videos on the website, and the Biz User Guide for Hospitals will be is located under reference documents. I think it takes a few days for the training, for the webinar to be posted. Is that right, Kathy?
That's right, Laurel. It should be up within a week.
Okay, there you go. And it all would be probably a good refresher for anyone who did watch it today if you want to run through it again. We just wanted to remind you about the Born Enhancement Cycle. So we're always out in your sites and we're doing things like this. So anytime you have something you think should be added to the Biz or maybe not helpful to the Biz, you can always send us a request. We do, you'll get an electronic response that your request was received. And we do have to go through a pretty rigorous process to determine whether your enhancement is feasible, and it's really based on how it impacts the whole rest of the Born Information System, whether it's an improvement to the actual functionality as opposed to a data element, or if it has significant improvement in clinical relevance. So we do look at them all, and you will get a response. In order to do that electronically, you can go to Help on your landing page, and then enter the Biz request form. Help is also available on the side menu, but it will take you to the Biz and select the Biz Enhancement Request form. At that point, this will open, and you put in your information and then tell us what you'd like to see enhanced. And this is related to reporting as well. If there's something that is really important to your site about reports, please put that in there. So it's not just data elements or functionality, it's also about reports. So you enter that and then you press submit, and you will be get a response right away, and we'll get back to you as to the process of that enhancement. So that's it for the data download reporting webinar. Just to remind you about our conference coming up. It is in Toronto this year. We think we're going to do it every 2 years, and we're going to alternate locations. So we hope that you'll be looking forward to attending that, submitting abstracts. And I think that's it for now. Any questions? I think Kathy's going to open up the chat line.
So if you have any questions, just a reminder, type them in that chat box located on the left-hand bottom of your screen, and we'll be happy to answer those. Nothing in the chat box at the moment. Just while we're waiting, as a reminder, Laurel mentioned initially there'll be another reporting webinar this fall, and it's going to cover the specialty reports of baby-friendly initiative statistics and the status comparison report, as well as the Robson Cesarean Section Monitoring Report. So you'll receive an invitation for that webinar closer to that date. And again, we welcome suggestions on any future training webinar topics. Just talk to your Born coordinator and they'll be brought forward. So no questions at the moment. Maybe we'll just give it a moment, and if there's none.
So I hope this webinar was helpful. Download reports are quite complex when you first look at them, but you can't wreck anything. So don't be afraid of that. Go in and start playing. We did not show you how to save and print because we actually don't recommend that unless you've taken out all the personal health information. So as Vivi said, delete the rows that have any identifiers. Delete them, don't hide them. And then you could save, but these are the kind of reports where you might want to just get the numbers and be able to report back to your site about, for instance, this query we did today on primips and multips epidural rate in spontaneous labor and postpartum complications.
Thanks, Laurel. There's one question here. Is there a reason why you aren't demonstrating using pivot tables? Is it just for simplicity for this webinar?
We can do that next time. That would be a great and very fun training to do. We needed to start somewhere.
That's a great suggestion for a future training webinar, and we're going to make note of that. Thank you for that.
And I just wanted to add, the phone line that we use is a special events line because we never know how many participants we're going to have. And the one downside of this big line, where I think we need it for more than 50 participants, right, Kathy?
That's correct.
Doesn't allow us to open up the line, the phone lines, because you can imagine how noisy that might be if we opened it up. So we would prefer to be able to chit-chat with you and maybe chat over the phone instead of typing in your questions, but that's just functionality is not available. If we used a smaller line and limited the number of participants, we would be able to do that. But we don't want you to think that we don't want to hear from you. So after this, if you want to contact any one of us, our contact info is also available on the website, plus most of you know who your coordinator is. So if you're a little unsure about typing in questions or you can't get your point across with typing in, please give us a call, and we'll be happy to chat about it.
And Kathy, for that person that was asking about pivot tables, can I ask that you recommend the kind of pivot table you might be interested in taking a look at, and then we can incorporate that into our training?
We can't do it right now, can we, with the spreadsheet that you downloaded, Vivi, or no?
We could. Give me a minute.
We did secure all these folks for an hour, so we might be able to. Pivot table is it's expansion, so it'll give you different detail level of report. So for those of you who are just starting, pivot tables may be the next step, but sounds like the folks at William Osler are interested in how to create a pivot table. So Nita's going to see if she can walk us through that.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Vivi.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to be put on the spot. First thing I'm going to do is undo my filters. So we're looking at the whole set of data that we've got here. Pivot tables are a lot of fun. One of the challenges with the way that the Born reports render for the encounter list, not an issue here, but sometimes you'll need to unmerge some of the columns. So I'm just going to put that out there for those of you that do pivot tables. Sometimes a limiter, all you need to do to unmerge, if there are merges, is come up to the top left-hand corner of your Excel spreadsheet. In clicking on that top left button where that little white plus sign is here, it selects the whole thing, and then click on Merge and Center, and it will undo your merges for you. The merges are there just to make the presentation of the data look a little bit better, but they do get in the way of pivot tables. Okay, so we are going to select all of the data for this pivot table presentation. Up on the top menu bar, come to the Insert tab, and on the far left will be Pivot Table. So click on that. This Create Pivot Table box shows up, and it asks you whether it asks you to select your range. You can select a smaller range if you want to. I'm just going to do everything for the time being. Let's see how that works. And it asks whether you want the pivot table to show up in a new worksheet, which is a new tab in the Excel spreadsheet that you're working with, or do you want to drop it right into this particular screen that you're seeing. I'm going to keep it as new worksheet. It's a little bit easier. Click on OK. It's not valid. Hang on 1 second. Let me just double check. I'm going to then just grab this for a set of data and see if we can do it for that. Insert, pivot table. Nope, not liking that. You must type a new field. Sorry.
Well, I wish we could open the phone line. Maybe our folks at William Osler could walk us through it.
Hang on 1 second. Give me one moment here. Let me look at what's going on. All right, so we may not be doing this.
Oh, you know what? We're not actually. Oh, we're in a already created spreadsheet. So does that matter?
It may be. I mucked a lot with this spreadsheet to make sure that it was.
Yeah, I think we've manipulated this spreadsheet so that we can't do that.
Give me 1 second. I may have solved some part of it. Let me try it again. Okay, I don't know. Let's do this. We're going to get ourselves a little bit more organized. I can't figure out what it is on the fly, so I apologize for that. And we'll do this in a different presentation. And William, also, if you can figure it out, send me a text or an email.
Send me a text. We definitely will do that first in our next presentation. If people are interested in how to, well, it sounds like people are interested in how to get the data from that, how it renders just in a plain Excel into a pivot table.
And we'll make it work next time.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to give people back the rest of their day unless there's no more questions. Kath?
Yes, no more questions in the chat box. So we will give you, as Laurel says, back the rest of your lunch hour. So thank you very much to Laurel and Vivi, and we thank you all for your attention today.
Thanks a lot.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.